This is WXOJLP Northampton, 103.3 FM, your Valley Free radio station. Welcome. I'm Warren Odess-Gillette, and this is A Baha'i Perspective. A Baha'i Perspective is a radio program that presents a Baha'i perspective on life through interviews. If you want information specifically on the Baha'i faith, you're welcome to visit the website www.baha'i.org. That's BAHAI.org. Or you can call the toll-free number 1-800-22-UNITE. Today I'm playing a telephone interview with Somava Stout, creator and director of the kids organization Raising Peacemakers, and the director of the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston. I started the interview by asking Somava, what is the Children's Theater Company?
The Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston is a theater company that tries to help children learn how to be peacemakers and to help teach the world about what it means to be peacemakers through the arts. It's a cooperative children's theater company that was founded and based on the one original parent company in New York that started more than 10 years ago. Our company started 2 years ago and has just had this incredible spirit of helping children to make a difference in the world by giving them a voice, by giving them some skills, but most of all giving an enormous amount of support, encouragement, and character education and building that helps them to know that they can actually grow up to make a difference in the world, or even make a difference right here and now.
And how did he get started?
We got started when Mayor Mansouri, who's the founder of New York Children's Theater Company, was interested in starting, looking at communities that had a lot of assets in terms of children's education and wanted to expand into the arts. In Boston, we had something called a Raising Peacemakers program, which was a program that helped teach children how to be peacemakers that had been going on and very successfully, but wanted to add an additional dimension to really help children have a voice that reached people in a larger cross-section of society, and to bring all of the fun and drama of the arts into it. And so this seemed like a perfect partnership, perfect collaboration. So when Mayor Mansouri came, she told the people in the Greater Boston community about what Children's Theater Company in New York had to offer, which was this incredible array of music and plays, things that had been, really material that was incredibly high quality, developed by, people who work for PBS and for, dances that, are choreographed by people who are in the Rockettes, incredibly high quality stuff, actually. Use that kind of material to help teach social messages, to create positive social change. And she actually sent one of her artistic directors, Jill Bolstridge, here to Boston for an entire summer. And Jill was Mayor really infused an enormous amount of energy into the Greater Boston community to help give people a vision for what Children's Theater Company could be. And because our company was wedded to this Peacemakers program, our company evolved in its own flavor, in its own manner. We actually decided to become a cooperative children's theater company that was open to kids from all backgrounds. We committed from the beginning that people would be able to pay whatever they could afford to pay, so that finances would never be a barrier to participation. We reached out to an incredibly diverse community from the very beginning, ranging from inner city kids to kids who are some kids who come, hours from the Boston suburbs, from Salem and other places that are actually quite far away, because they love the not only the music and the drama and the fun of it, but also what it has to teach the kids about how to be peacemakers.
And you keep mentioning a cooperative theater company. What does that mean?
That means that it's a very it's a different idea and a slightly different model than the one in New York. But it's the idea that all the parents who are a part of the company, all the families, at some level own the company. So there's somebody who's a director of the Children's Theater Company, Greater Boston. It's me. And there's there's a production manager and there's an artistic director. But the idea is that this is an effort that's led by both it's an effort where the parents and the families are intimately involved in the company. So what that means is that, it partly has to do with our financial structure, but much more importantly, it has to do with the spirit with which people approach it. It's not a drop-off program for kids. Parents play vital roles. They help to be assistant teachers. They lead character education classes. They help create. Two of them are costume designers. One of them has evolved into one of our choreographers. They help to run the company. And it means that we take financial ownership, too. And what that means is that, because we've committed to saying that, people are able to be a part of the company regardless of their ability to pay, it means that all of the rest of us agree that we're a community and that we will take responsibility for whatever the costs are. I have to tell you, so far we've done really well, actually. It's a very unusual way, I think, to do well. But, last year the kids sent $6,000 to help the Katrina evacuees through their fundraising. This year we're sending at least $1,000 overseas to Guyana to help fight child labor by helping to create schools in rural Guyana through the Varka Foundation, and also to help with the environment through the United Nations Environment Program. So the kids have create a vision for what they'd like to do in terms of their work, in terms of making a difference in the world. And the adults do everything they can to support the kids in their vision, whether it's through fundraising, through helping with the production, through creating costumes and sets and things like that, to creating stages. I mean, we actually had a parent build a stage for us. So it's the idea that it takes a whole community to raise a child and operationalizes that.
You mentioned the Peacemakers program. Can you give me some background on that? And it sounds like that was sort of the mother project before the Children's Theater Company in Greater Boston.
Yeah. The Raising Peacemakers program started about 6 years ago now in the Greater Boston area in response to the Baha'i community's desire to create classes that are for kids of all faiths and backgrounds that would help to share some of the help them to understand and use some of the teachings of and principles of the Baha'i faith, but also that had helped to empower children to know that they could grow up to make a difference in the world. And so Children's Theater Company is one program that's sponsored by the Raising Peacemakers program, but there's many other classes that run in quite different ways throughout the New England area as well as in several other states. So Peacemakers started, as a parent-child program, and I think you see some of that in the cooperative nature of Children's Theater Company too, where parents and children would get together once a week. It was created by parents of all different backgrounds that wanted to raise their children to know what it meant to be a peacemaker, whether it was in their individual lives, in terms of how they dealt with feelings, in terms of how they dealt with their friends, their brothers and sisters, how they dealt with the world immediately around them, and then had a vision for knowing that if they had within them the capacity to make a difference, they learn from the lives of great peacemakers. They study them at a pretty high level. I mean, it's pretty. It kind of takes your breath away when suddenly, a 6-year-old stands up and says, the reason we shouldn't be bossy is because Mahatma Gandhi said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. So if you really want something to change, you have to start with yourself, And it's just remarkable, actually, when you hear, these kids grow up with a real understanding, that the earth is but one country and humankind its citizens, and that's the world that they live in. And it's sort of giving kids of all different faiths, all different backgrounds, a place to come to with their families, so that the families aren't separate from the educational process and development of the kids, but in fact enforce it. So the parents are not only in class, but they have homework assignments to actually notice when their kids have been peacemakers. And all the kids have in peacemaker programs have the homework assignment to try to do something in their life to be a peacemaker each week. And they report back on that every single week at the beginning in something called Circle of Encouragement, where their acts of service are noted and encouraged and praised, and the virtues that they've developed are specifically mentioned.
Okay, and we're speaking with Somava Stout, and you're the director of the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston. You mentioned other programs that Raising Peacemakers is sponsoring throughout New England. You want to mention a couple of others? Oh,
sure. Actually, in many communities, Lexington, Salem, the public schools, Cambridge Community Center, and the Tahrir Peace Institute, there's probably 20 different peacemaker programs that are done in neighborhoods and community centers, after-school programs throughout the New England area. Some have actually started as far away as China and Japan, and others, because it's a very grassroots process of helping to empower a teacher or a group of parents who want to have a vision of helping children to grow up to make a difference in the world. The training is offered at a very low cost to people. And then we go forward, and they actually go back to their communities and start classes. And the purpose of the program is actually to empower adults to know how to empower children to be peacemakers.
Now, if people are interested in how to contact or get involved in the Raising Peacemakers program, how would one go about doing that?
They should contact me. I'm actually the director of Raising Peacemakers as well. And my email is probably the best way to reach me. It's somavastout@yahoo.com. It's SOMAVASTOUT
Okay, let's go back to the Children's Theater Company. How did the New York Children's Theater Company get started?
The New York Children's Theater Company was really the brainchild of Mayor Mansouri, who was the founder. And Mayor is this incredible artist and visionary who woke up one day and said that, I know I want my life to change. I want children to somehow be a part of this change. And she thought about it and she prayed about it, and then she woke up one day and started answering her phone, Children's Theater Company of New York. So before there was a company, she had a vision of creating a company that would help to build character using the arts. And so she was able to, she's an artist and an actor in her own right, but she actually was able to engage in her connections in the artistic community of New York, to engage other artists like Laurie Lazarus and Eric Dozier to create amazing material for children. And they started very, very simply at first, much like I think we did, and then over the years have grown into a powerhouse in terms of creating just amazing musicals and dramas that are seen by, and where actually guest artists come who are, renowned actors from all over New York. They have probably produced something like eight shows a year.
You and the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston and the Children's Theater Company of New York, I suppose you share the same mission, and what would that mission be?
Very much. It's to build character on stage, to use the arts to give children a voice, to create positive social change in the world.
And how many children are involved, and what are their backgrounds in the Children's Theater Company in Greater Boston?
There are about 20 children involved who have been in the program this year, but over the course of the last 2 years, probably it's been about 75 kids involved. The children come and rehearse for 4 hours. It's pretty intense, for 4 hours every Sunday, for about 6 months of the year. We're going to a summer schedule, which is a little bit easier to go to do. But the children come from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. Just about every every continent except for maybe Antarctica is represented. The families are diverse, and there's this season there's a family that's just come from Israel that has just been struck by the peace that's represented in the unity and diversity that's represented in the company. There are families from India, families from the Middle East, families from Christian backgrounds to families from Persian backgrounds. It's really it really is a microcosm of the world. There's inner city kids, there's suburban kids, and when they're at CTC, they're there as part of the CTC team, and so all of that kind of falls away.
The Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston is putting on 2 musicals March 25th, 2007 at the Holyoke Community College at 4 p.m. Mm-hmm. And can you tell me a little bit about these 2 musicals? Oh,
sure. They're 2 of my favorites. Sneetches is one that I think most of the audience should know by Dr. Seuss. Is an epic tale of the haves and the have-nots, right? It's the Sneetches, the star-bellied Sneetches who have stars in their belly feel incredibly superior to the Sneetches who don't have any stars in their belly. And so when 2 enterprising merchants come into town with a magic machine that can put stars on bellies and take them off too, the star-bellied Sneetches have to figure out what they'll do to keep feeling that they're better than the other Sneetches. So it's a great story, literally about the haves and the have-nots, but also about what's really important about a person or a Sneetch might have to do more with what's inside than what's outside. The second musical is an adaptation of Stone Soup, which many people, again, in your audience might be familiar with. It's a wonderful story. Initially of several soldiers that came into town, but New York, CTC New York actually wrote and rewrote this tale after several victims of Hurricane Katrina came and joined the company. And they were incredibly struck by the peace that and serenity that these incredible evacuees had, that despite the fact that they'd lost everything, they still were able to feel like they had something to give back. And I think that message of being poor yet having the knowledge of what the secret to happiness being in knowing that one had something to give was something that really struck a chord in their hearts. So the play has been rewritten as a musical. And it's represented as Romanian gypsies in post-World War II Europe who come and visit a village asking for food. The villagers have suffered great famine, floods, and wars, and feel like they have absolutely nothing to give. And so it's the gypsies who come with clearly nothing at all, who find a way somehow to create a stone soup that ends up feeding the entire village. It's about the true meaning of sharing, of generosity, of hospitality, and about being thankful in the midst of poverty.
What other productions have the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston put on?
Let's see. We've done Yertle the Turtle by Dr. Seuss, The Butter Battle Book by Dr. Seuss. We've done The Lorax, also by Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss is very much a favorite of ours because there's so many amazing social tales to tell. Horton Hatch's The Egg is another one by him. Miss Spider's Tea Party by David Kirk. Kunka Bunka and the Queen Kunka Bunka and the Rock and Roll Rascals, which is an original written by Mir Mansouri. Let's see, those are some of the ones that we've done
now
recently.
The Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston have put these on, or these are the ones that are available from the Children's Theater Company in New York?
Oh no, these are some of the ones we've done in the last year.
That's a lot of productions.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of very enthusiastic kids.
And what other productions are available from the New York Children's Theater Company?
Right now, they're actually, through the end of this month, I think, running one called Providence, which is based on the life of Roger Williams and has to do with religious tolerance. Then there have a couple of other ones. Children's Letters to God is another one. Respect, A Musical History of Women.
Mm. Maybe you could describe a little bit of the background of Roger Williams and the other one about the Letters to God.
Well, the Letters to God is very simple. It's actually based on a book, I think, called Children's Letters to God, and has to do with, what kids have, thoughts that kids have, looking at the world from a child's perspective, who wants to know from God, why is it that the world is the way it is? Why is it that people can't know what to do, know how to treat each other right? Why is the world the way it is? Mm. And what can we do to make it different?
And the background of Roger...
Providence?
Yeah, Providence, yeah.
So Providence is... I only know just a little bit about it, but it's based on the life of Roger Williams, who was the founder of Providence. So it's a historical piece, and it's really about what it meant to create religious tolerance. In Providence, I don't know if you know much about Roger Williams at all.
Well, maybe the listeners haven't.
Yeah, he came from England, was a chaplain in a wealthy family. He actually came on a colony ship initially to the Massachusetts Bay Colony in the 1600s. He first came into Salem and then was really dedicated toward this idea of religious tolerance, and eventually formed his own colony, became governor of a colony in Providence, in Rhode Island, what is now Rhode Island, between 1654 and 1658. So he, just had this idea of creating. He was a writer and wrote a lot while he was alive, and worked on creating a community that was open to all, to people of all religions. And that's what the play is about in musical form.
Right.
It's an original. A Children's Theater Company creates a number of original plays, and that's one of their original works.
I wonder. It's interesting that it was that subject that was an inspiration for an original work.
Yeah. Well, again, a lot of what CTC does is try to find real life stories of great peacemakers and make them something that's accessible to people all over, people of all ages, really, to retell those stories so they can inspire us. So the kids this year, in addition to the plays we mentioned, have a whole piece about Martin Luther King Jr., which they do in honor of Black History Month and in honor of MLK Day. And there's a number of, they really study these lives so that they understand what they're all about. One of the rules at Children's Theater Company is you can't say something in life on stage if you don't know what it means in life. And that means that kids really have to understand and own every word. At the end of every CTC show, we have a Q&A time when the adults in the audience are encouraged to really challenge the kids to see if they understand what they're talking about. Because they don't just perform, plays which have, scripts. They actually choose, they study the lives of these peacemakers, and they choose some of their words to say as their own quotations, and each one chooses a quotation that means something special to them. and memorizes it and talks about it. But they can't, whether it's that or the choral pieces that they do or their dance or whatever it is, they're not really allowed to say it on stage until they understand what it means and understand what it would mean in application in their lives. And so that's kind of, the fun part of it. I mean, I feel like what the audience sees, when they come to a show is only half the story. What we get to see as adults who are involved with these kids is the real transformation of these kids to have role models of these great heroes and heroines that have come before them. One of the kids' favorite songs is one that seems unusual. It's actually a spiritual called "Soon I Will Be Done," of the troubles of the world. And people sometimes say, well, why are children talking about that? And it's really, we dedicate that song to the great peacemakers that have given their lives for the cause of peace. People like Abdul Baha and Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and Baha'u'llah, who have chosen to live lives of great integrity.
Abdul Baha being the son of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith.
That's right.
Now, this event on Sunday, March 25th, 2007 at Holyoke Community College, where you're presenting Stone Soup and Sneetches, it says it's an annual show provided by Raising Peacemakers and Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston. Can you explain this concept of an annual show?
Oh, this is the show that they've been working on since October.
Mm-hmm.
We'll probably be doing a modified version of it for you guys. But this is sort of, at some level, one of our, for one of our rules, again, at CTC is that every kid counts. We look at what kids have in their hearts, not necessarily, what they come to us with in terms of, being the best singer or the best dancer. It's really a character development program.
Mm-hmm.
And so the annual show really encompasses each child's journey toward learning as much as they can. And so it's really special because you see where the kids have come over time. For you as an audience, that means, a full show means you'll have the choir there. I think we are not going to be able to do our dance there because our dance director isn't available this time. But you'll have the full choir. You'll have the full performance of of both of the productions. Whereas often we do shows where we might do a medley of from many different shows, smaller shows like for a half hour here or a half hour there, at many different venues, where we might just do choral and quotes or do a couple of the pieces from the musicals.
So I'm speaking with Somava Stout,
mm-hmm.
director of both the Raising Peacemakers program and the Children's Theater Company in Greater Boston. Now, how far and wide have you traveled with this theater company?
Well, we have certainly been all over the Greater Boston area, and we're looking forward to coming to Holyoke on March 25th. But probably one of the most interesting things we did last year was to go to Cape Cod to Otis Air Force Base to visit with the Hurricane Katrina evacuees. The children were so moved by the Katrina devastation that they saw that one of them had the idea of, actually instead of beginning our season as usual, of dedicating a series of performances to help raise funds for the Katrina evacuees. And so we created a show within a week that was just for that. We actually began it on 9/11, dedicated it as a performance for peace, and ran 3 shows over the course of the next month and a half. And people were just so moved by the very genuine wishes that the kids had for the Katrina evacuees that a member of the audience actually contacted the mayor of Otis Air Force Base, which was a civilian mayor at the time because of the occupation, because of the presence of civilians on the base, and let them know about what these kids were doing. And the kids were actually invited to go and meet with the evacuees and perform for them. And that was just an incredible experience in so many different ways, Warren. We had for the kids, first of all, actually did all these projects within their own communities that they initiated in their local libraries, their schools, their neighborhoods to help raise awareness about the plight of the evacuees. They had other children create hundreds of cards with love and good wishes for the evacuees, and their performances raised, as I mentioned, about $6,000 for the American Red Cross to help. And then when they went to perform, it was an incredible experience because here was this incredibly diverse company that included people from who were of Middle Eastern origin, which required, of course, enormous security clearance to enter an active Air Force base during wartime. And as our vans pulled up with people from all over the world, coming in to sing about peace, as we passed the guards with semi-automatic weapons at each of the checkpoints. I could only think what a miracle it was that we were being invited into an active Air Force base with the personnel at the Air Force base actively promoting among not just the evacuees, but also among all the children and families that were at the Air Force base to come and watch a performance about creating peace in the world. And I remember, I'll never forget that performance because I remember thinking as a director, I wonder how this show will go over. We were actually doing Yertle the Turtle and Butter Battle Book. And Butter Battle Book is actually about the arms race and about how nihilistic it is in a way, done in as funny a way as Dr. Seuss can put it. But
right.
And I just thought, gosh, these are families who have a husband, a wife, a member of their family that's in the war right now. What are they going to say about this? And so when we the first thing, we did was to ask the kids in the audience what they thought the greatest problem in the world was. And one after one, they raised their hand and said war. And it was just, it brought tears to all the eyes of all the adults there. I had multiple families actually come up to me and say, "Can we start a Peacemakers program here? Because this is what we need too." It was just an incredible experience, and of course, meeting with the evacuees themselves was just amazing. The children were welcomed with open arms, and actually got to go and visit where the evacuees were staying and see what the conditions were, but again, they just personified this love and welcome that helped me understand why CTC in New York would decide to dedicate a whole musical based on the message that they had to share.
What's your vision of the future with the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston?
I think the future really has to do with what these kids will do in the world someday. But in the shorter term, I would like to see Children's Theater Company be accessible to everybody. We'd love to multiply it into neighborhoods throughout the greater Boston area. Right now we have some kids traveling 2 hours to come, and that just, would be great if we could create more community theaters. So we're looking at how we can do that in a sustainable way. To create theaters out in the western suburbs, in the northern suburbs, and help support each other in making this be something that's accessible to kids all over the greater Boston area. We've been multiplying children's classes through this as well, and it's just been a wonderful way to create community.
Now, is the Children's Theater Company of New York also expanding its... are there other branches of the Children's Theater Company of New York like yours in the greater Boston area? There's
one in Virginia. I think there's one beginning in D.C. There may be one beginning in L.A. There's going to be actually a Children's Theater Company weekend up at Greenacre in Maine.
Which is the Baha'i Conference Center in Elliott, Maine.
That's right. It's not very far away from Massachusetts. It's really only about an hour and a half. I'm not sure from Holyoke exactly how far it is, but it's well worth the trip. Kids who come up, if the kids who come to the audience in Holyoke, the families enjoy Children's Theater Company and want to get more of a taste of it. In one weekend, kids will learn choral, they'll learn parts of a musical, and they just have a blast. That's really, there's some of the CGC New York chapter will be there, the Boston chapter will be there. And really all the chapters, including many of the ones that would like to get started, will be there.
And what weekend is that?
That is the weekend of, I believe it's the third weekend of April. If you wait 1 minute, I can tell you the dates exactly. April 13th through April 15th.
And people can find out more information by going to www.greenacre.org?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm talking with Somava Stout, director of both the Raising Peacemakers project and the Children's Theater Company Greater Boston. They are presenting 2 musicals March 25th, 2007 at the Holyoke Community College Forum Building C at 4 p.m. It's free. The 2 musicals are Stone Soup and Sneetches, sponsored by the Amherst Baha'i community and the Furatan Baha'i School in Northampton, Massachusetts. If people want to contact you about the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston, would they use the same email address?
Yeah,
okay.
They can certainly email. I'm so sorry. We have a shared website, which is down at the moment. But they can also learn more about Children's Theater Company as a whole by going to www.childrenstheatercompany.org.
Okay.
One website that has our information also is www.childrenstheatercompany.org, and if you put /Boston, our contact information is also there.
Okay.
But I guess I would say come watch the show. It's really fun. Kids love it. They really feel like when kids see other kids standing in front of them acting, it's just a different experience even than when they see, even experienced actors acting for kids. It gives kids a sense that, hey, I could do that too. And kids have such incredible imaginations that the way in which they act out these parts is truly hilarious. So we're really looking forward to coming to Holyoke. We're looking forward to meeting all the folks out there, and we hope that all of you come and watch the show. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, thank you very much, Somava.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Somava Stout, creator and director of the kids organization Raising Peacemakers and director of the Children's Theater Company of Greater Boston. For a copy of this and other interviews, you can go to the website www.abahaiperspective.com. For information specifically on the Baha'i faith, you can go to the website www.baha'i.org, or you can call the toll-free number 1-800-22-UNITE.